Lena raced through the biting night air. Each gust of wind felt like icy claws. The station loomed ahead, shrouded in an unnatural fog. 11:55, just in time. The station was deserted. No flickering lights, no bustling crowds, just an eerie silence. The announcement board flickered, displaying a single destination. Unknown. A shiver snaked down Lena's spine. The train arrived, its brakes screeching like a tortured beast. The doors hissed open, revealing an empty carriage bathed in a sickly yellow light. Lena boarded, her unease growing with each step. Lena chose a seat near the front, her bag clutched tightly on her lap, fingers gripping the fabric. She was alone, except for a lone figure at the far end of the carriage. The figure was shrouded in shadow, its face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. It sat unnaturally still, an unsettling aura emanating from its hunched form. Time seemed to crawl. Every tick of the train's clock felt like an eternity, stretching moments into minutes. Lena tried to focus on the rhythmic clatter of the wheels, but the silence from the shadowy figure was deafening. Her heart pounded in her chest, echoing in her ears. She dared a glance towards the figure. It remained unchanged, still and silent, like a statue carved from darkness. The carriage door slid open, revealing a gaunt figure. His presence was almost ghostly, as if he had stepped out of another time. The conductor's uniform hung loosely on his bony frame, the fabric appearing worn and tattered, as though it had seen countless years of service. His face was a mask of shadows, except for two piercing blue eyes that seemed to burn with an eerie inner light, giving him an almost supernatural aura. He punched Lena's ticket without a word, his eyes lingering on her for a beat too long, as if he could see into her very soul. Then, in a raspy voice that seemed to echo from the grave, he spoke, "Last stop, you should disembark, child." His words carried a weight that sent shivers down her spine. Lena felt a chill run through her, a coldness that seemed to seep into her bones. "But this is my train!" she stammered, clutching her ticket tightly, her voice trembling with fear and confusion. "Not anymore," the conductor replied, his voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the air like a knife. He pointed a skeletal finger towards the shadowy figure at the end of the carriage, a figure that seemed to be waiting for her. "This train, it isn't meant for the living," he continued, his words hanging in the air like a dark omen. Lena's blood ran cold as she felt an icy chill creep up her spine. She turned to look at the figure, her breath catching in her throat, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The shadows seemed to deepen around it, swirling and coalescing into a grotesque parody of a human form, as if the darkness itself was alive and breathing. The figure slowly raised its head, revealing a face that was both horrifying and hauntingly familiar, sending a wave of dread through her. It was the face of her grandmother, who had passed away a year ago, a face she had loved and missed dearly. But this was not the loving grandmother she remembered. Her eyes glowed with an eerie light, and a skeletal grin stretched across her face, twisting her features into a macabre mask. Lena stumbled back, her heart pounding against her ribs, her mind racing to comprehend the impossible sight before her. The train lurched violently, throwing her off balance and nearly sending her crashing to the floor. The carriage seemed to grow colder, the air thick with the scent of decay and damp earth. Panic surged through Lena as she struggled to regain her footing. She scrambled to her feet, her eyes darting between the ghostly apparition of her grandmother and the spectral conductor who watched her with an unsettling calmness, his presence adding to the surreal horror of the moment. Lena sprinted towards the carriage door as the train began to accelerate, its speed defying all logic. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing the rhythm of the train's wheels on the tracks. She threw open the door and jumped, landing hard on the unforgiving gravel. Pain shot through her body, but she knew she had to keep moving. The train roared past, a ghostly silhouette against the night sky. It seemed almost otherworldly, a phantom racing through the darkness. It didn't slow down, didn't even acknowledge her presence. It was as if she had never been on it, as if she were invisible. It simply vanished into the fog, leaving Lena lying there, drenched in a cold sweat. The silence that followed was deafening. She lay there for a moment, catching her breath, the echo of her grandmother's ghostly laughter ringing in her ears. It was a sound she hadn't heard in years, yet it felt so real. As she slowly sat up, she noticed something strange. The station was gone, the tracks had vanished. Everything she had known was now a distant memory. She was alone in the middle of nowhere. The vast emptiness around her was both terrifying and oddly comforting, but at least she was alive. The realization brought a wave of relief that washed over her like a warm embrace. This time, she had cheated death. Or perhaps death had chosen to spare her. Either way, she knew she had been given a second chance.